Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time. Today's the 8th, September 8th, year of our Lord, 2022. And Laurie, you and I are back again for another episode of Lunch Talk, part of our Contagious Leadership Series, episode 55. And our guest today
is going to be awesome.
All right, so thanks for the introduction, by the way, as well, Mr. Patrick Veroneau, who is going to be bringing to us some insight in leadership. So listen, we're going to go into this, but if you are a leader right now in a position where you have possibly lost opportunity and that leadership has really escaped you, and you want to know how to get back into that, how to bridge yourself back into your leadership role and know how to attract your employees instead of bossing them around in that sense, then stay tuned. You're going to love what we're going to be talking about today. Do not leave. Incredible show. Get some notes or pen and paper. You know the deal. I can't talk. It's the end of the week. Let's go, Donnie.
Let's go.
All right.
I am so ready for this conversation.
I am too. Listen. All right. It's another day where I'm like, it's a squirrel moment for me.
All right.
So when Patrick gets in, you're going to have to help keep me focused, all right? And those of you guys who are watching, you know the deal. Drop a hashtag live. Let us know that you are watching, and we'll bring up the chat. In a couple minutes, we're going to get introducing you to Mr. Patrick Veroneau. Bring him in.
Hey, Pat.
How are we doing? It's so good. I got to tell you, I love being backstage, watching everything that goes on. What a place to be.
Yeah, it's this is an interesting place, period. We just go with it. We just go with it, Pat. So I'm excited to have you on. We've been waiting a while to get you here, and I'm excited to talk about your new book. So I wasn't sure. Are you gonna? There it is. There was your cue. The leadership bridge.
Right on, Laurie. Right on.
There it is. Laurie bringing in the support. And
the leadership bridge, cable. Keep that.
Cable.
That's the only word you need to know is cable.
That's exactly it.
Okay, I love it, and I'm looking forward to getting into that. So, a lot of accolades for yourself. You've been in leadership quite a long time. TedX speaker, a coach currently working with a lot of companies, specifically in these areas. And here was the question that I prompted. And here's what I want to get into, and I'm hoping that this is going to be valuable for somebody out there right now. I'm a leader in a role where I didn't have the proper training, formally, informally, but the point is now I'm realizing that I need to do more, okay? And I've created the wrong leadership style. I'm working for an organization. I've created more friends than I have team, and I don't know how to step into that place. I don't know how to step into the role of leader and really take my organization, my team, my department, and really bring it to the next level. And when Laurie and I were talking through this, we thought there's just not enough trying to help somebody in it, like right in the middle, right? Because there's plenty to teach leaders that are not in the leadership role yet and growing into it. There's plenty to remind leaders what to do to become better. But I thought, what about the folks that have been in leadership and really weren't doing the greatest job and now want to do better, but they have some obstacles, right, Patrick?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. So as you talk about that too, we're in an environment, right, where we hear so much about this, the great resignation right now. And
Yes.
to me, it's almost a hoax. And what I mean by that is that the Great Resignation has been going on for a long time. The only thing that has changed is probably starting in the fourth quarter of last year. What we started to see was record numbers of people actually leaving their jobs, physically leaving their jobs.
Physically.
But if you look at data from Gallup over the past 2 decades, only about a third of employees are engaged. About 15 to 18% are actively disengaged, and then the rest are what we would call just disengaged. So you're talking about 2/3 of a workforce that are disengaged in an organization. Again,
Have you heard the comment right now? It's going around. It's called the quiet quit.
yeah, right. So the quiet quit to me is really what more has been happening, where
Already?
people physically and physically they've left recently, but prior to this Great Resignation, or what we want to call now this quiet quitting, is that people mentally and emotionally quit a long time ago. It's just that physically they didn't have the options, or felt they had the options, to leave the organization they were with. But that didn't mean that they didn't leave. And I think that was more damaging than the people that actually left organizations. It's interesting. I was just talking to somebody yesterday from a hospital that this is what I think you're going to start to see too, is this person knew of a director in their company, in the hospital, that left. She was on her way to work and was driving behind this person that was on her way to a new job, and said she felt this sickness in her stomach, like of envy, that this person, she felt, got out and went on to a new job, right? And I think you're going to start to see that when the Great Resignation, when the ability to leave organizations sort of dries up and employment becomes tighter, those people that wanted to leave and didn't are going to resent even more where they are, because they're going to feel like they didn't take advantage of the time that they had to go to a new location.
You know, that's interesting, and I think we kind of do this. It's almost in human nature that if we're faced with a reality and that we don't want to challenge, but someone else does. Let's look at weight loss. And I think a lot of people that have gone through this process in fitness or in their health, and the minute that they start to do that, it other friends or peers or people that they would always kind of associate with that didn't have a healthy lifestyle would then all of a sudden start to guilt them for making this change, as if they're doing something wrong, when the truth is it was mirroring to them what they know they needed to do. You know, and it's almost, I've heard these stories in my own personal life as well, of individuals leaving and getting shunned by people within the organization or the company that they worked with, because they left for a better opportunity.
Yeah.
And people no longer wanted to friend them, as if they did something wrong by bettering their own life and their family's life.
But isn't that
So
also,
there's a term that we use to call it, it's called crabs in a bucket. So in the term crabs in a bucket, if you think about it, is that one crab that tries to get out of the bucket, and all of a sudden the rest of the crabs are pulling on the legs, saying, nope, you're staying in here with us.
Crap. Okay, I can see that.
yeah, I like
Right?
that.
Nope, just pull them back down.
It's like-
You're
and
not
it's-
going to get better.
And it's kind of like that, like, I don't want to change myself. So because if you start changing, then that makes me have to, like, I got to start looking at, like, what's not working in my life, how I'm not showing up in my life. So it's almost like, if you stay here with me, like, you keep my world safe.
Yeah. Right. Because then I don't have to do anything.
Well, yeah, it's almost like they don't have to make the change or do the work.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm currently in my own studies, and what I'm doing is I'm learning to give myself that language, like doing the work worth doing, right? And it's not easy, but doing
Without
the
question.
work takes work.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this a little. You said, for the leader who's in the role today, who has been in that leadership role, managing a team, and didn't step into it properly, and is now working to try to take that position back. Essentially, they need to take that leadership role back, because they never had it, right?
Yeah.
So they need to take it. You said this is not going to happen easily. Help me understand that.
No. So if we go back to like the book, The Leadership Bridge, the premise of any relationship we have, if you think about it like a bridge, that's all that we have. So I will often use as an example the Golden Gate Bridge. And if you look at that one cable that runs from tower to tower, it's about 3 feet in diameter. But if you did a cross section of it, it's about 23,000, somewhere around there, individually wrapped cables. To me, that's no different than our relationships with those people around us, that in terms of our behaviors. The more we behave in the right ways, the stronger this bridge becomes. So when you talk about this leader that sort of has not really done their job as a leader, their bridge is not very strong. They haven't behaved in ways that allow them to sort of step into that role easily. So the only way that changes is by them consistently starting to model what are the behaviors that are going to create an environment where people feel not only engaged but inspired to want to follow where they're asking them to go. And that's a big challenge. Again, doesn't happen overnight.
And Pat, one of the things that I see often is that, kind of like what you've already alluded to, is that a lot of people put into leadership roles who haven't been properly trained. Yeah. And so now what they're doing is they're looking up and is like, all right, that's what that person is doing. So that must be what I'm supposed to do. And so this is why I think that bad leadership is just constantly happening, because we don't even have that many good role models. Yeah. We're not even teaching people how to be effective leaders. We're just like, hey, there's an opening. We need somebody to run this department. Here, you do it.
Yeah. And along those lines, so I had an interview the other day. I was speaking with a gentleman, Stephen M.R. Covey, who his dad was Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's written several books himself. One is The Speed of Trust, and his most recent is this book called Trust and Inspire. And he talks about it in a way of saying that command and control approach of leadership, that one that was sort of always the one that was taught or we developed in that area, it doesn't work anymore, right? So if I'm that manager that has been thrown into a role where I haven't been trained and I'm looking up, I may be looking at those people that still have that command and control, and that just doesn't work anymore.
No, it doesn't.
That's not what's going to do it. And I always think of this, if we look at leadership, if we were to make leadership a product, right? And say, what do people want to buy? If we did the market research, just like any other product that you do, you would go out and find out what is it? What are the features that people want to buy with this product? And if you got all that market research and then said, well, you know what? I don't really agree with that. I'm going to put these features on the product and we're going to sell this. Would it be any surprise that wasn't purchased? Nobody bought that product because you didn't follow what the market wanted. And leadership is the same way. If you think of leadership like a product, all of the market research has been done. If you look at engagement surveys and other surveys that have been done where they've asked employees or followers, what is it that you want from a leader? What are the things that inspire you or engage you to follow somebody?
Exactly.
If you took that market research, right, those things, you've been told what your customers want to buy, deliver on that and they'll follow you. That's right. It.
So Pat, this sort of reminds me of I think, like 50 years ago, people went to work for different reasons, but also their work wasn't like the center of their life. It wasn't fulfilling. There were other places in our lives, like your church, your community, that you got that sort of connection. So I think that people go to work for very different reasons now than they did 50 years ago. So it's no big surprise that leadership should have changed, although it's still that model from 50, 60, even longer years ago, and we haven't changed. But what you were just bringing up reminds me of, and I know that you and I have talked about leadership a lot, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did I ever talk to you about the sticky note exercise that I would do at audiences?
Oh yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I had, I would ask the audience, I would have these sticky notes all over the place, for them to fill out. And what they had to do was write 3, think of a leader that they absolutely enjoyed working with, underneath, next to. and what were the 3 qualities about that person that they loved? And what I would do is I would, this is where like the audience would get up, and it would be like, go put on this wall if it had to do with their job. Over here, if it had to do with their personality. And it's no big surprise, but the personality wall was wallpapered with sticky notes.
Yeah.
And it really is about the person and not how well do you know your job.
One of the things that we talk about how leadership is changing, Laurie, and one of the things that I have found, if you take a look at what's happened in the current job length of time, right? So there was a period where 30 years ago, an individual like myself would get into a career and maybe change my job 1 or 2 times tops. Mm-hmm. And I would spend 30, 35 years with one company, and I would have the length of my career there. And today, at least this was a statistic almost 10 years ago, that now the average is 7 different companies before before coming to a final place. Looking at what we see today, especially with the way that opportunities are available through methods of online and so many different ways of supporting and helping your market, that I would assume that number's even larger. So why I bring this up is because leadership comes from what? It comes from mentorship, right? It comes from being in a position where you're constantly being mentored by peers around you. It's tribal knowledge, right? You go into an organization, you have an organization that would make investment into you to grow, but at the same time, working with peers that have been there 5, 10, 15, 20 years before you would pass on lessons learned, tribal knowledge, and would bring you under their wing. And so now here we go, we're in organizations today where we're not staying there long enough. So where are the leaders? Where are the mentors? And so if they're not searching for mentorship, then they're not getting it. And so I think the reason why we have such a lack of leadership qualities today that are necessary, which is why I'm so passionate, Laurie, about what we do with this program. And Patrick, this is the inspiration to everything we're doing. Is I have the privilege of working with young people, all under the age of 30, who are hungry for knowledge, mentorship, and want to become leaders in their own space, but purely just hungry for that mentorship. And what I'm finding is it just doesn't exist. It's not anybody. It's not that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just people aren't in organizations long enough. So this tribal knowledge just isn't being passed down. It just doesn't exist anymore. And so what are we doing to help? And I think that's what is a critical element that maybe we're just forgetting and not really talking about, which is why I said, what happens for the person right now that's in a position that they're supposed to be a leader and they don't know what to do? How do they step into that role?
And it's easy to lead when things are going well. I think the real challenge is when things get challenging, when something something happens in a department, when somebody leaves, when you have a troubled or disengaged employee. That's when shall I say, like, the holes in someone's leadership skills really shine through. What do you say to that, Patrick?
So first off, along those lines, I would say that one of the things that I've recommended, I believe that would be very cost effective for us to do, is do leadership development as part of onboarding, right? Mm-hmm. Create an environment where leadership development is part of your onboarding. Because when you do that, what you do is you naturally sort of identify what are the behaviors that we're going to look for here in terms of our leaders. What are the things that are going to align with our organization, and then you decide, or people decide, who takes those things and runs with them. Why wait 2 years to decide to put somebody into a leadership development program? I think we miss such an opportunity, as opposed to let's do it right at the beginning when we onboard people.
I couldn't agree but more. I love that. Just start right from the beginning, because you're right. I think when you get new people in organizations, and I know like myself, whenever I've joined a new company, it's like, that's when you start to see like, oh, wow, like here's a great idea. Here's something that they're probably overlooking because they're so in the day to day. And if you're right, if we wait 2 years to start promoting somebody and then having them, like, let's get them leading, we've not only have we missed that opportunity to figure out like who the right people are to put into leadership roles,
Exactly.
but yeah, you're right. Like that is a beautiful example and a great time to be doing this.
Because if you think about it, we may be promoting the wrong people. If we wait 2 years, especially my background is from sales. So oftentimes somebody that was really good at sales, what do? Logically, we promote them to a management role. The skill set is not the same. That what made me successful as a rep and what makes me successful as a leader, not the same thing. Whereas if we start leadership development out as an onboarding tool, you could have people that just naturally take those behaviors and they start to enhance them. So they start to self-select in terms of who your best leaders are going to be based on that.
Patrick, what I'm remembering is my dad's an engineer. He worked for Raytheon forever. And he got promoted. And I remember him saying, he really missed engineering because the higher he went, the less engineering he did. And I wonder what kind of a leader my dad actually was. I've never actually talked to him about it, but just because you're good at your job, this skill like engineering doesn't mean you're going to be a great leader to lead other engineers.
That's without question. Mm-hmm. So Rigo, really getting back to the initial question here though, right, is what do we do for the leader that isn't really leading? Again, I started out talking about disengagement, right? Because I think, and about bridges. If we think about this in terms of bridges, just based on some of the engagement data that's out there that says that a third of employees are engaged, 15 to 18% are actively disengaged. And we think about crossing a bridge, the leaders on one side, employees on the other side. The behaviors that we've developed, that we've modeled, that creates the stability of the bridge that we're on. And I mean this not from a physical standpoint of us crossing this, but really just the emotional and the intellectual part of being within an organization. Do we want to cross that bridge to get to that leader? So the actively disengaged, there's no bridge there anymore. It's gone, right? Because the behaviors haven't been modeled there and the employee they're gone. They're not doing it. And they're actively saying how much they dislike the place. The ones in the middle, the disengaged ones, if they had an exit an off-ramp that they could get off safely, they probably would get off the bridge before they got to the leader. So that means you only have a third of the employees in the organization that want to cross that bridge, that it's strong enough. The leader has built something there that they're like, I'm going where you're asking me to go. I want to follow that. Now, for me, the model that I use with my clients and in the organizations that I work with is this model called cables. This is all about building bridges. And these 6 cables that I talk about are all based on research. And that's the benefit of the industry that I came from. I came out of the biotech industry, and everything that we did was based on what's the research that backs up why a physician should make this decision. Well, the same research exists for leadership and decision-making, all of that stuff. So the better I am at understanding the research in terms of what are the behaviors that create this environment, and I model those, that's how I build my bridge. That's how I build my bridge up. That's how I get those employees that now have to really lead me or follow me, I should say. That's how I get them on board. But it takes time to build a bridge.
Okay, and it does. It does take time to build a bridge. That's a really great statement right there. And I think that's the element that, someone like myself, that's one of my areas that I struggle with, is understanding sometimes. And it's interesting because I come from an operational background, then went into sales, and then went into leadership. And in those different roles, I was always in some form of leadership. But it's interesting because when it came to sales, I could understand the time frame that it was necessary. And a lot of the roles that I was in, it was an 18 to 24 month sales cycle. And most people don't understand with a 33% average closing rate, that's a good closing rate, and an 18 to 24 month sales cycle, you're only getting 1/3 of 2 years of work.
Yeah.
And you can't stop because that could have been at the 12-month mark, and you are hoping that you can get them the next round of 12 months. It's just the way that our industry was. But then it would come into personal aspects, and I didn't have the patience to understand that bridge wasn't not going to be built overnight. But I could understand it from a career side in sales.
Yeah.
May not have understood it all the time in leadership. You know, even today we help our clients gain attention and increase their awareness in a social setting like this. And a lot of times we have to explain to our clients, there is no such thing as magic marketing. You cannot create yourself as a thought leader or create creative content that's going to make you a star overnight. There is no overnight success. Everybody you see today who's a influencer within the social setting, that social media setting, who is actually driving how we do business in social selling, is been doing it for 12, 15 years minimum.
Yeah. Right.
You know, in that space. So I think it's really interesting that you say that. And I really think we need to remember that a bridge is not built overnight.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not built overnight. But you said cables, and I want you to get into it, but please go ahead and respond to that. I'm sorry.
So I was just going to say that along those lines, so there's a great book in regards to, I would say, goal setting, or it's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's written by, I think one of the authors is Sean Covey. But in the book, he talks about leading versus lagging indicators. And too often, so you can think about this from sales, right? Your lagging indicator on the sales cycle is, at the end of this thing, did you get the sale or didn't get the sale? We don't control that for the most part, but what we do all control, we have absolute control over, is the leading indicators. What things are we doing consistently so that we put ourselves in the position that the lagging indicator materializes, or has the greatest likelihood to materialize? It's the same thing with this. With cables, we're going to talk about leading indicators, right? Really in the end, I can't guarantee that somebody's going to follow me. But what I can do is, based on the research that I know provides the greatest opportunity for that to happen, if I do these things, these leading indicators, and I do these consistently, then the lagging indicator has the most likelihood of happening.
So break down cables for us.
Yeah. So cables, first cable that we deal with is congruence. That's it. Walking the talk. What do we do? Is what we say and what we do the same thing. So in your conversation about this leader that sort of hasn't done their leadership role, whatever that is for them, oftentimes what happens is what they say and what they do is not the same thing. They hold other people to certain standards, but they don't do them themselves, right? We're not building a bridge when that doesn't happen. Think of organizations as well that have, they spend all of this money and time developing these values and mission statement, right? And one of the most popular ones that we all hear is that our employees are our most valuable asset, right? Yet congruence is not there. The alignment of most individuals would laugh at that, of saying, I certainly don't feel as though I'm the most valuable asset here. As a matter of fact, the photocopier gets better attention than I do when something's wrong with it.
I have a share here for this one. I actually heard an HR person say it was during Employee Appreciation Week, and she was like, "Isn't this wonderful that we're giving all of our employees like cookies and candy? Like we're going around to department to department." And I just like walked away, shaking my head, saying, "Yeah, what happens to all the other weeks?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's 1 week, it's 1 week out of the year that you're showing your employees that, hey, I'm so glad that you show up to work every day.
Yeah.
With a cookie.
So it's interesting you say that. So Laurie, I was working with a healthcare organization. This was an ER department, and once a month they had an ice cream cart that got wheeled into the department. And these individuals said, you know what would have been more valuable is having senior leadership come down and maybe dress in scrubs and ask us how things were going, as opposed to this token ice cream cart that showed up once a month. It was insulting to them. to have
Because
this
it's
happen.
easy to send ice cream,
Yeah.
versus like upper leadership, like let's put on the scrubs and go down and actually talk to our
Right.
employees and find out, what do you need? What do
What's
you
going on?
like? Like what's going on down here? Because too many times, and I come from healthcare also, that it's the people that are at the top that are making decisions for the people at the bottom, and they don't even know what their job role is, but it's that communication,
Yeah.
to be able to, like really know your people. And I think I love that congruence is like the very first.
It
of
really is
people.
about alignment.
And I think this comes back to this lack of, because if you think about this, you guys, this HR person is making an attempt to connect in an emotional aspect, saying, hey, I care about you because this works for my children. So this should make you feel good. Cookies make me feel good.
Right.
Here's the deal, right? Would somebody in a leadership role who's been properly trained to understand what really matters make a decision like that? You want to have cookies and do something sweet, great. Let that be something you do as an add-on, coming and saying, hey, let's do a walk and talk. Walk and talk. Right?
So
tell me how things are going. How's the department, right? What's it like? What's going on? What are your struggles? What are your top problems right now? What do you see as your issue within the organization? What are we doing well? What are we not doing well?
Right.
Little walk and talk, right? But if they're not being trained, Patrick, right? If they're not being taught internally, then how do they know how to pull that from employees, right? Like you said, getting that buy-in.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna let you finish because I want to hear A, B.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've segued into A, which is around appreciation. There are two different parts here, though. So
is
appreciation.
Cookies in
so
the
cookies are not in here. Could be.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
So here's where cookies could be appreciation, and it could be important. If the employee that you're dealing with said, "I love chocolate chip cookies," and you wanted to do something nice for this individual, and you'd say, "Hey, listen, you know what, Rigo, I want to thank you for what you did the other day, and on my desk is a tray of cookies," right? Something specifically that that I love or that I know you love, then it's meaningful to you, right? It's not just if I gave you chocolate chip cookies and you're allergic to chocolate chips, probably not there's not a lot of appreciation there. But appreciation has two parts to this when we're building cables. One is about recognizing people for what they do, right? So that's the letting people know, like, I appreciate what you're doing. The other part is recognizing people for who they are. And I think that's the part. So we hear a lot right now about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, Cables deals with all three of those things. So when we talk about it in terms of appreciation in other people, this is about recognizing that we need diversity, right? And to appreciate that, the benefit of having people with different perspectives, different diversities, different places they've worked with, to be able to recognize there's a value when we have that. The part of recognizing people for what they do, here's where I think it goes wrong, is that oftentimes people might get cynical. Like this isn't really about appreciating, this somehow is a manipulation. So a couple things that we can do here. One is, this is an acronym within an acronym. I use RPMs, recognize positive moments. Just like in your car, you have a tachometer. If it runs too low, the engine's going to stall out. That's when you're not recognizing people enough in an organization, you have disengagement. When you recognize them too much for insignificant stuff, or you just make these silly sort of recognition events, then you redline and the engine burns out because people say this isn't sincere. Organization doesn't really care about this. There's a sweet spot we all have, and a way that managers can try and maximize their ability to do this ethically in a way that's meaningful is there are three things you can do. One is when you recognize somebody, make it unexpected. So the person doesn't know that they're going to get recognized for it. Second is make it specific. So I don't just say, you know what, Laurie, you do such a great job, because that doesn't mean anything. If I say, Laurie, the other day when you did X and this happened, I want to let you know how much I appreciate that. It's specific. And lastly, it's meaningful, something specific to them. Meaning that if I'm in a place where I don't like to be recognized in front of a group, don't send an email out to the group recognizing me for what I did. Call me aside. Maybe that's how I like to be recognized. We need to be able to do that.
And so I really like that, Patrick. And just so that people who are watching and listening to this, like, how will leaders know specifically, like, hey, how should I specifically recognize and share that appreciation with this person? Do you have that kind of a tip?
It gets really easy. You ask them.
Yeah,
Right?
I knew you were going to. I knew
You
it was
know
going to
what?
be
I
that.
was just about to say something. If there's one of the things I've learned about relationship building through my own personal life is, and this has come from mistakes. So in no way, there was sarcasm in there if you didn't catch it. But these lessons learned was the simple fact that how I want to appreciate somebody is not how I should approach that, right?
Right.
If an employee does not like cookies, is allergic to, like we talked about, right? It doesn't show them any appreciation.
Right.
Some people, an award is a big deal. A simple award to put on a shelf means a lot. To others, like myself, you award me in my paycheck.
Yeah.
That's where you show me you
Right,
appreciate me, is in my money. I'll go buy my own plastic sign.
Yep. Without question.
Right. And so, but that you're right. Ask them.
But
Yeah.
the whole asking thing, too many times we think that as leaders, or like we're supposed to know it all. So to ask people. So I think that's a really strong point that we need to emphasize here is, as leaders, we can't be afraid to ask questions, to learn about our people, and not just assume that they must be like me and they'll appreciate these cookies that are on my desk, even though they're a diabetic.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if I were to say to you, you know what, Laurie, tell me about a time when you were recognized for something you did. What was it? What was the best thing that you've received for being recognized for doing, good work? Now I get an idea of what things are important to you. So now it's personal, right? It's not just everybody gets the trophy.
Right.
So that's it.
Love it. Okay, that's A.
So and now we're on to belongingness, right? This is about connection. In this environment that we're in, I think this is the piece that we talk about paying people more and doing all these other things to increase benefits. I would argue that if you create an environment where people feel connected and they belong, then they don't want to leave that. And they're not leaving for a few more dollars because they're saying, I love this group. I'm not leaving this group for a little bit more money, for the most part. Right. And I think we miss that. So belongingness we create in an environment as a leader through what we would call psychological safety. And I know when people first hear that word, they're like, oh my God, here we go. We're going to coddle people. It's got to be a safe space. It's the opposite. When you have psychological safety, you have an environment where people can speak and say what they want to say without fear of being retaliated against or ridiculed or maybe even ignored. And when that happens, you create an environment where people feel like, I belong with this group. Like we have crazy discussions on things. We have conflict, but it's in a way that I feel like we're respected, and we can do that here. That's belongingness.
And that comes right from the leadership as the example, right? They have to be
bingo
very open with the aspect of criticism, and people need to be able to say, Patrick, I think what you did was a very stupid decision.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, let's sit down and discuss why you're angry, why you see and feel that it was stupid. And it's not from a perspective of you're going to prove to me why I'm not smarter than you versus, okay, you're upset. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we're also disconnected from the aspect that if we're building a culture and we're saying that we're a family, I don't know about your family, but we usually blow up first and then solve the problem and get to the root. So when we're a family, then I need to be able to say, your idea was stupid. And you can't be like, I'm going to cry and go tattletale.
Yeah.
Like we need to be able to sit down and work it through. And I think that's from the top. I don't know if you're picking this up about me, Patrick, but it's pretty open here.
Yeah.
And my team will tell me that's stupid. And I'm like, okay, you're mad. What'd I do? Let's figure it out.
But listen, along those lines, the bridge is strong, right? And what I mean by that is if you think about the bridge again, right? If we built a strong enough bridge, we're going to do things that piss other people off. That could be cutting 10 cables on that bridge. But the bridge is strong enough that those can get repaired. We're going to be able to fix that. This bridge is not in danger of falling apart because we've done enough things all along the way that has made this strong enough. Our cables overall have been very strong here in terms of how we continue to build on this bridge. So we're gonna muscle right through that. No problem.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna make it.
Yeah.
That's.
Right,
I mean,
so we're on to L.
So we're on to L. Listening.
Okay.
Sorry, Lori. L.
Listen.
Lori. Anyway,
Listening.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying listen.
Yeah. This one is. I think this one is one of those ones that it takes a lot of work. And I talk about listening in 4 different ways. We listen with our ears. We listen with our eyes. We listen with our mind. And we listen with what I would call our heart, with empathy. Yeah. Listening with our eyes and ears are pretty easy, right? Or, but they require focus. When I listen with my eyes, I'm looking for your gestures, facial expressions. Are they in alignment with what you're saying? Easiest people for us to start practicing this on are people we know really well. Go to somebody or observe somebody that's really upset that you're close with and watch what their body language says. You're starting to pick up on those things that tip you off as to what's going on with them. We all have triggers. We have defaults that we go to, all of us. And that's why we listen with our eyes. When we listen with our ears, we're listening for tone of voice, the speed that somebody talks, the word choice that they use. Those things become really important in terms of understanding where somebody is coming from. And when we're listening with both of those, just those two, it's hard for us to do other things. I can't multitask if I'm listening with my eyes and my ears to you. I'm focused on you, right? So the next one, we listen with our mind. This is where we slow things down. This is about listening in a way that is about curiosity. Is what you're saying and what I'm perceiving your meaning on this, are they the same? Because that's where misunderstanding or conflict can often happen, right? What I think you're saying pisses me off, so I'm gonna attack you for it, but that's really not what you meant at all. Right. Yep. And we've caused a problem when one didn't need to exist. Right. So maybe before I do that, I say, listen, Rigo, you know what? You just said this. I just want to be clear. Is this what you mean? Right. I'm going to clarify that. That's curiosity. The last one is we listen with what I would call our heart. And that's put yourself in the other person's shoes. If I was being addressed or talked to about this issue or in this way, how would I want to be treated? When we listen on all 4 of those levels, we change the game. Without question, we change the game.
I love that. So eyes, ears, mind, heart.
Yeah.
Lori?
Yeah.
4-wheel drive.
Yeah. And too many times I think we leaders are doing too much.
Yeah.
And again, like they're trying to multitask. They're looking at their phone. I was like, you did a great job on that project. All right, I got to go. Great meeting.
Yeah. Keep going. I'm just going to finish up this email, but keep telling me what you're telling me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, doesn't work.
Yeah, but I do care what you're saying.
Right.
I care about it enough to let you in my office, but I do got to finish this because that's important. It's such an important aspect, and as leaders, it's easy for us to forget.
Yeah.
That time has to be valuable, and if we really do care about the organization we're in, and this is not something that you fix once and then it's good forever. This is a constant reminder that this time has to be valuable. But at the same time, I think, would you agree, Patrick, that we also need to value that time? So this isn't time for us to come and bring complaints without a purpose. This is about working through and solving a problem. So we're going to have that focus. We're going to identify the issue, and I'm going to allow that person to speak, where as a leader, I'm eyes, ears, mind, heart. And then we're going to create then a step of where we're going to go next, right? But we're valuing our time, because I think we can make a mistake where a leader says, okay, I'm going to start making all this time. And then they're becoming upset because now they're falling behind, and it's the fault of this whiny staff. And they're now shifting their entire reason of doing what they did.
Yeah.
Right.
Whiny.
Yeah, without question.
Whiny staff.
So
These are just things I've heard.
We're sort of creeping toward some of the cables that are gonna step in and
it's
address some of those
almost, I
too.
swear, and I didn't know the acronym, but why is this working out really well for you, Patrick?
All right, wait a minute. I just want to talk about this listen one also, just a little bit more, guys. That for anybody who's watching this, because we are talking about, like showing up late to the leadership role, or, how to really repair. I mean, I think this listening one is such a valuable one. And this is so easy to start doing right away, to start practicing, like putting down your phone and just listening to the people that report to you. But being fully present, eyes, ears, heart, all that stuff. I just wanted to like emphasize that before we move on to the next letter, guys, that listening is so valuable and we can all be practicing this all the time.
Yeah.
And I promise you, many of us don't do enough of it. I can tell you right now, that is my struggle area. It really is. And I think a lot of us are, but that's my struggle area. What I'm right. I know you because I am you, right? I'm talking about me when it's like, yes, your time's important. Come on in, let's do it. Right. And today we have a team call today, and we've made it a point. We're going to go through some stuff. Everybody's involved. We're going to sit down and everybody's done after lunch. We have a training coaching program that my team is a part of. I have them in an outside coaching program that's going to help them as individuals. And then after that, we do our time together. It's once a week. We've missed it the last few weeks. And I love that my team says, no computers, no, not like we're focused, and we need that. As a team, we need that. Right. And so I'm calling myself out. I don't have a problem with that.
And your team is also, but I also want to give you some credit here, Rigo. The reason why your team can say, hey, we need this is because they feel that safety.
Yeah. So I'm gonna sort of speak out of both sides of my mouth on this one though, because one of the issues that I've dealt with managers, especially newer managers that want to sort of be this, I'm going to be there for those people that report to me, is they have what's called an open door policy. You can come to me whenever. And the problem that starts to happen with that is people have too many gotta minutes. And what happens is they don't get right as a leader, I don't get my own work done. So then I start to be, as you come into my office and you start to talk about a problem, I'm not really there for you because I'm thinking, oh my God, how much longer is this going to go? Because it now it puts all my stuff further out there. So what I would have challenged people to do is say, just like in school where you might have office hours that you could go to a teacher to talk, that you set a rule of saying, I'm going to set 3 days a week. This is the time that you have to meet with me. Let's come in and talk at this point, right? If you need to outside of those times that are set, I'm not going to say don't, but what I'm going to ask you to do first is, one is, have you made an effort to solve this on your own, right? Have you made an effort to solve this on your own? And secondly, I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, is this something that cannot wait until one of those open meetings that we have? That's all I'm going to ask of you. And I do this in a way of saying that I want to be fully present when you come into my office. That is time that I'm going to dedicate to you. It's in both of our best interests. I want to make sure that happens. And that's why I want to do that.
I really like that, Patrick, because it's also putting on, like the other person, like, have you taken the time to solve this? Or are you like in the moment, the heat of the argument or something, and just want to come in and be Mr. Whiny Pants and have the boss solve the problem versus like, I want to teach my people, and I think that is part of the whole thing about leadership is that you should be training your people. You should be coaching them constantly to grow themselves. Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah. We're both on that page.
So we're 2 letters left. Empathy. Okay. Empathy stands by itself here. Right. And if you think about this, right, if I'm that leader that is now trying to get my team back, and maybe I'm frustrated because I'm like, well, I'm doing these things and nobody, put yourself in their shoes, right? It's been a long time since they've experienced a leader. And now you're just trying to step into a role. It doesn't work that way. You've got to earn that.
Especially when you were like
MIA.
A couple weeks ago, possibly not behaving as a leader.
Yeah.
If the roles were reversed, how would I want to be treated here? Right? Think of new employees. If I'm having a conversation with a new employee, what if I remember what it was like to be a new employee and how I wanted to be treated by a senior leader? What was important to me? If I remember those things, right? Those are important things, right? That idea of empathy. And to me, when we think of empathy, some people might still think, oh, it seems kind of fluffy, kumbaya. It is the strongest skill I believe that you can demonstrate, is to show empathy to other people.
All right, Patrick, here's a big one. You ready? I can hear Laurie. I can hear Laurie going, oh boy, where are we gonna go with this one?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I know it. Okay.
He's warming us up for this one.
Yeah, I'm giving you guys a quick pause and a quick second. All right. So empathy is one of those things that I feel is a word that gets thrown around quite a bit.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what, I would, and I'm going to ask your opinion on this, because for individuals who have not shown that before, if they try to bring this BS, false, unauthentic, I care, I almost feel like this was going to be worse in the situation than if they hadn't. And I think this is really critical, that a listener who is in this role, a young leader or a leader who's been in a place where they're not leading and now they need to, you mentioned right from the beginning, this bridge is not built overnight. And I believe that being empathetic towards someone's position and situation and really showing true empathy is a character development. You cannot fake this. Would you agree?
100%. 100%. Now, again, I think it's a behavior. It's that certainly can be developed. Sincerity is the most important part here. And it's about imagining, right? I mean, that's really is to truly imagine. You've got to be able to say, what would it be like if I was this other person? How would I want to be treated? In the same situation, if things were flipped, what would it be like if I was that person? You got to be able to do that. And to me, that's the sincerity part of it, right? It's not, this just isn't a circus trick, to try and get somebody to get where I want to go.
It's a skill. It's a skill that
but you got to care, right? I mean,
yeah, you do.
But it's got to be real, right?
You got to care.
Real.
I mean, if you don't care, then we've wasted our time anyway. You can do all of these things.
I mean, if it's not real, like, the person that you're trying to show empathy for, they can read that, they can sense it, they can feel it, they can see it in your eyes. I mean, everything.
Gail says authenticity is key. Yeah. And yes, it is. You have to be authentic in this. So I love that empathy is within this cable, and I see where it's going, right? I'm catching it, Patrick. All right, I'm catching it.
We got our final.
I'm not going to take a guess on 7. I'm not going to take a guess on a 7.
Oh, come on, Rico. Take a guess.
On the S. Nope. I'm maybe. Nope.
Specifics.
Oh, there it is.
Clear
Details
expectations.
Matter.
Right.
Details
Clear expectation.
Matter.
So clear expectations and also decisiveness are in this idea of specifics. In organizations, when I go in, especially when there's conflict, oftentimes it's because there aren't clear expectations, right? What I need and what you need, we haven't clearly defined what that looks like. And when that happens, we could both leave a situation where, as a manager, I ask somebody to do something, they deliver on what I asked based on what they heard. It's not what I wanted. We both leave frustrated. I leave frustrated that this person can't do good work. They leave frustrated thinking I'm never pleased for what they do. All because we didn't set clear expectations on what does this need to look like to be done successfully? What do we need from each other to, as a leader or as a manager and as an employee, what do you need from me to feel as though I'm doing my job? And here's what I need from you. Right? Specifically, here's what I need from you. Now, the other part of this is accountability, or what I would rather call ownership, is that too often times I will go into organizations and they'll say, oh, we've had this conversation with this person for a year now, and they just don't seem to want to change. I'm like, that's on you now, because basically you've trained them that what you said was important really isn't important. And if you think about this from a cable standpoint, we're right back to the beginning around congruence. Walking the talk. What we say we expect from each other and what we hold each other accountable are not in alignment anymore. So the bridge starts to come down again.
And it really is a circle. And that's what I love about this.
Without question.
So let's go. We're going to go through this again real quick. So as a leader in a position where you have not really stepped into that role, and honestly, this is for any leadership, but specifically for you, if you're in a place and in a position where you're like, how do I step into this? How do I begin the process of really of taking that position and stepping into that place where I'm going to gain, right, the attraction of my team? Like, they're going to want to run with me. They're going to allow me to lead them. I have to start to live by example. But these 6 elements, I think, are phenomenal. And I'd like you to run them by again real quick as we kind of come to the end, Patrick.
Right. So congruence, walking the talk, right? Appreciation is our next cable. That's about recognizing people for who they are and what they do. Belongingness is about connection, right? That you create an environment where people belong. They feel relatedness. The next is around listening, right? And those 4 different ways we listen with our ears, our eyes, our mind, and our heart. And then we demonstrate or we behave with empathy toward other people. And then lastly, we set clear expectations, but also we create a sense of ownership for clear expectations that we're going to follow through on what we commit to here. That's it. Now, the book, right? The Leadership Bridge, the book, that's one component of it, right? In the beginning of this book, the first part of this, we talk about as a leader, how do you develop your own bridge, your internal bridge? Because I think that's a big piece that's lacking in a lot of individuals, not having the confidence in themselves. You got to have that first before you build the bridge with others. The last part of this talks about how do we build habits over a long period of time. And that's a lot of research around neuroplasticity and automaticity. How do we create this in a way that this just becomes second nature to us? We do this ongoing. And there are ways to do that, as a new leader, for me, I'll give you an example, right? On my calendar, on my every day at 10:30 and at 3:30, I have something that I want to work on that I put just a buzzword in there that I know, and my alarm goes off, and it might be, say it was listening. I want to work on my skill of listening today, on being more with just my eyes, watching people, what they do. Then in my calendar at 10:30 and at 3:30, it goes off, and it might just say listening with eyes. And it gives me an opportunity to remember, am I doing that right now? That's how I build that habit.
I love this. I love that. Patrick,
That's
go ahead.
great,
Lori,
Patrick.
go ahead.
There's so much that we unpack here. And I don't want anybody who's watching this, who's in any sort of leadership role, to get discouraged thinking, I'm not doing all of these things. But just like Patrick, just like what you said, Laima, like put it in your calendar, just like, hey, for this week, I'm going to work on the empathy, the listening with my ears, listening with my eyes this week. Just take the pressure off.
No, I love that. And be committed. I mean, here's the deal is like any skill set, it has to be a learned behavior. For those of us that have been in leadership for decades, we still consistently feed ourselves with information. We're constantly reading other people's books and going to courses to strengthen, not because we're not doing this for really any other reason than we understand that if we don't consistently remind ourselves and keep this information in our life, we will also slip back into easier roles. Becoming a leader and being a leader is not an easy process. It takes work. It is easier to just let it go, but then you find yourself in a position where you're like, ruh-roh, I wish I didn't do that. Now I got a lot of work to do. Right, Patrick?
Yeah.
Right. Leaders are learners. That's it. Leaders are learners.
Oh, I love that. Beautiful. Great way to end it. So, Patrick, number one, I want to thank you so much for being here today. For those of you guys who are watching, we have put in Patrick's contact information. We dropped it in the chat. We put a link to the book, which I will be ordering when I get off this from Amazon. You can get it right there or somewhere else. I don't know. I put the Amazon link in. That's where I get all my books. But you guys, I'm so grateful that you were here, all of you. And for those who are watching this on a replay, do us a favor, do a hashtag replay. If you like content that we're bringing, let us know. Like our video and tell us in the comments. Also, do us a favor and text us a hashtag lunch to 316-799-8052. Join our community. We let you know when we go live and let you know when we get content like this and anything that's coming in from our speakers or any of this. So anyways, on behalf of myself, Patrick and Laurie. I forgot we have this cool little. Okay, I should have given you the time.
Little video.
I gotta listen, my team comes up with all this really great, and I forgot that they had it. And I'm like, what's happening on the
That's
screen?
great.
All right, yeah. So anyways, you guys, thank you so very much. Patrick, it was a pleasure. Listen,
Hey, thank
I'd like
you
to
guys.
have you back.
This was awesome.
And we can get deeper into this by all means. And you guys make sure to pick up the book.
Right on.
Laurie-Ann, please show us it one more time. There it is. There she is, doing a great job. The Leadership Bridge. Love it.
Ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
You guys, thank you so much. Patrick, be blessed. Have a wonderful time.
Thanks a lot.
With all you guys today. And you guys will join us again next week, same time, 1 p.m. Central, Thursdays, right here for Contagious Leadership Lunch Talk live. Talk to you later. See you next week. Donnie?
Awesome. Peace.